What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Amateur TV for another video on the second channel for Amateur. On this channel, I like to go through additional NBA-related topics, especially concerning the Toronto Raptors, that I just don't really have enough time to go through on my main channel, Amateur Sports, with nearly 12,000 subscribers. So instead, we do so on this channel, and today's a perfect opportunity to do that. On this channel, a little bit less formal, a little bit more of a personal touch for myself, but still the NBA content that you want to see. And this is definitely something that I wanted to talk about. Wasn't going to put this on my main channel because it's not Raptors related, but I still want to talk about it, and this is the perfect outlet for me to do so. Obviously, as you saw from the title and thumbnail, we're talking about Ime Udoka. Pretty touchy subject, but what I want to do in this video is give my point of view on everything. I want to talk about why this is and should be such a big deal. I want to talk about why this is bad. Other things are bad as well, but this is also bad, and we can still talk about this. I want to talk about a damaging aspect about this that, may be a little bit comical, but also a little bit damaging, that I just want to help you guys understand. And finally, we want to talk about the landscape of the NBA's Eastern Conference, what this means for the Boston Celtics, looking to follow up an NBA Finals appearance in Eastern Conference Championship. So, Ime Udoka. Well, before we get started, be sure to like this video if you find yourself enjoying it. Consider subscribing for more content from myself, using a better light like this. This is, again, a touchy subject. I imagine a lot of people who watch this video are not going to like it. So if you don't like, I don't know, dislike or just leave and don't watch other videos. I don't know. When we do touchy subject, there's bound to be people with strong opinions, and fair enough. But I hope you can understand my side and my point of view of this one. So for starters, I'm sure you've seen, as reported by Shams, as reported by Woj, Celtics coach Ime Udoka had an improper, intimate, but consensual relationship with a female member of the Celtics staff. I'm sure this is a leak. This was not supposed to get leaked. Somebody leaked this, and it all unraveled really quickly, which makes me think that this may not be fresh news. And again, there was just a leak here from the Boston Celtics organization, and the PR team are probably scrambling on this one, but Celtics are apparently handling it. It seems like it is the Celtics that are going to be the team suspending this guy. There's a lot of talk of suspension. It seems like it's going to be for a full season, the 2022-2023 season, and I just want to let you guys know, it is not illegal for a subordinate to have a intimate relationship. Let's be kind to the YouTube algorithm here and monetization. It is not illegal to be for a superior to be intimate with a subordinate. That's not illegal. But what a lot of people need to understand about certain things like this is that private organizations, even public organizations, are not bound by, U.S. law. So it's not illegal, but it is very much, as reported again by Woj and Shams here, against the code of conduct for, I imagine, the NBA and all teams, but it is against the code of conduct for the Celtics. Ime Udoka, I'm sure, was aware of this when he came on. You just don't do this. A boss having an intimate relationship with an employee, even if it's consensual, that is just so heinous and so awful. Again, it is not illegal by law, but it is against code of conduct. And the reason it's in the code of conduct you can't do this is that a supervisor, a superior, and a subordinate, I was thinking a while before doing this video for the right term for this. It's not predatory. That's not the correct word. And I'm letting you guys know clearly that's not the correct word here. But it is, for trying to put this into correct words here, for a supervisor, they have the opportunity to use their position of power to get these sort of, not necessarily favors, to get this sort of intimacy with the employee. It's the same reason why a therapist can't have any relations like that with their patients. Doctors as well, with their patients. Teachers with their students. Coaches with their players. Coaches, in this case, with employees. It allows, even subconsciously for the individual, the subordinate, it's subconscious, even if it is consensual. It's horrible for Ime Udoka to have done this. And it's apparently his job is not in jeopardy, but I really find it difficult to see this guy coming back from this one. and just coming back next season like nothing happened. This is bad. This is really bad for Udoka. Like, this is so horrible to have done this within the organization, especially with a wife, which we will talk about a little bit later. Now, as I mentioned, this is bad. Very bad and worthy of that suspension. The thing that a lot of people are bringing up, and I think maybe a little bit justly, is the way they're talking about Udoka. You'd think he stole $5 million in welfare funds from Mississippi. He didn't do that. Brett Favre did that, as pointed out by NFL quarterback. Actually, is he an analyst now? Former NFL quarterback, Robert Griffin III. Obviously, that's a big deal. And 100%, that is not getting enough media coverage. 100%, that is not getting enough media coverage. And I think a lot of people would see something like this and not have any sort of knowledge about this prior to a tweet like this from somebody as famous as RG3. That's really bad. I'm not going to weigh up what's worse than the other and what should be treated, as such. Both are bad. Both can be bad, and we could talk about both. ESPN is not talking about the Brett Favre thing. Well, I think that should be more newsworthy, 100%, but that doesn't mean they can't talk about the Ime Udoka situation, especially comparing a current NBA head coach who just took his team to the NBA Finals compared to a retired NFL quarterback who's had genuinely a lot of history of some really bad looks in the news. Both of these are horrible. Maybe you would argue, and I would argue, the Brett Favre thing is much worse, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about this Udoka thing as well. I am an NBA content creator. This is NBA content that I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking about the Udoka situation. I don't think this really applies to me. It's more so to ESPN, and maybe a little bit of a fair point, but at the end of the day, this is a current NBA head coach who just took his team to the NBA Finals. As far as news networks and what they're talking about, I don't watch the news, so I don't know. But both of these things can be bad. We're allowed to talk about what you perceive to be less bad than the other one, because this is really horrible from Udoka. Now, the next thing. People who say something like this, okay. Like, what? Ime Udoka cheated on his wife, Nia Long? Like, he had Nia Long at home, and he cheated on her with a Celtics employee? How can you cheat on Nia Long? This type of thing. On one hand, sure, a little bit funny, and a little bit understandable, maybe, to see that and think, wow, he actually did that. But also, like, sure, I understand, we can appreciate the comical aspect of that 100%. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't find that funny. But I would like to put into the context and just get the thought in your head that it shouldn't really matter who he cheated on. It shouldn't matter what the woman at home looks like to your perception. It's still wrong and it's still horrible to cheat on your significant other, whether it is a woman, whether it is a man. Horrible to cheat on your significant other. A little 2 cents. It's still funny. It's still funny. Come on. I'm not going to say it's not funny. But keep that in mind. It shouldn't matter what's at home. You're cheating on your significant other. That's horrible. More horrible that he's a superior having intimate relations with a subordinate within the organization. Horrible. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Ime? Bro. Now, all of that touchy personal stuff is out of the way. If you're still watching, so I'm shocked. But now we're going to get to the NBA portion, the effect this is going to have on the NBA, in my opinion, of course, which, every piece of content I put out is my opinion. This is a big deal for the Celtics because they were a team for the first half of the last season, which was on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, really in like a playing position. And they just absolutely took off from like early December, mid-December onwards, and ended up making a run to the NBA Finals, where I think they were the better team on paper and should have won that series. They could have easily won an NBA championship. Talk about Chris Middleton injury, blah, blah, blah. They got to the Finals. I think they were better than the Warriors. I think they should have won that championship. And I think they're going to look back in a few years on that series like that is one they should have won if they don't win a championship in that time frame. Regardless, big part of that was the defense. Big part of the defense was the construction and the coaching by Ime Udoka. That's a little bit of a big deal for the Celtics. Now, I still think that's a really good team, and I still think they're going to win a bunch of games, and I still think they're like a top 3 seed at the minimum. But a change of coach in a pretty hostile group of players that we have seen in the past, like, they don't seem to be the best at gelling together. I know they got to a finals, but a lot of the times it kind of seemed like, maybe not last season you didn't get that vibe, but it's in spite of each other sometimes. You've got like screaming matches that you can hear outside of the changing rooms. Marcus Smart, obviously, a big personality. Some other big personalities there. There's injuries within the team. Like Gallinari, bad injury. Respectfully, not going to affect like their playoffs that much. I don't think he would have gotten a lot of play time in the playoffs. It is sad. I still think that something would have helped in regular season. Robert Williams III, going to miss some time at the start of the season. This isn't good. I don't think this is going to really affect them making the playoffs. Like I said, I still think this is a top 3 seed minimum. I think this knocks off a few wins in the regular season record. And I think in the gritty game 5s, 6s, and especially 7s of potential playoff series, that just maybe change and not having as good of a coach could come into play. Granted, I don't know much about the guy they hired. They've brought in the Celtics assistant coach who knows his team, knows how Udoka coached, probably has a lot of the same sort of philosophies in terms of coaching. Maybe they're going to be fine, but this offers a lot more variance into what the Celtics can be this season. I still think this is a big, good unit of players that are going to be able to figure out, but you can't mistake the effect that this possibly is going to have on this team. So, as far as the landscape of the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee looked like a lot better. Milwaukee are looking like a lot more as the best team in the Eastern Conference above the Celtics. This is going to have a little bit of an effect on them, but Celtics probably should still be okay. As for Udoka, closing thoughts, horrible to use your position of power like this. I get it's consensual, but as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it can be subconscious. Maybe in this case, it's not subconscious, but it is the supervisor using their superiority in this sense. And there is nothing you are going to be able to say that is going to alter my opinion on that. That is absolutely abhorrent. That is absolutely horrible. And it is completely against the code of conduct within the team, probably within the entire league. It's not illegal. I recognize that. But these are organizations operating under their own code of conduct. And that's what a lot of people need to recognize about it. Just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's allowable within an organization for very good reasons, as for the reasons I've outlined. And this is bad. Other stuff is bad too, but this is also bad. I don't want to say, I don't want to bring race into this Udoka situation because I don't believe that's the case. As far as the Brett Favre situation that a lot of people are bringing up now, I think, if Brett Favre wasn't white, maybe this would be a lot bigger of a story. And I think I'd predict it would be a bigger story. As for Udoka in particular, I don't think this has anything to do with race. This is coming from a white guy who probably doesn't understand, who maybe definitely doesn't understand. My perception is a superior slept with an employee. That's it. That's horrible. You don't do that. And the Celtics, the NBA, are clamping hard on that stance. Rightfully so. So, that is it for today's video. You're a trooper if you're still watching. Believe me. If you enjoyed, sure to drop a like on the video. If you didn't enjoy, don't comment. I don't care. Dislike if you want. But there's no need to comment. I'm not going to see it. Respectfully, I don't need that. I'm pretty firm on my stance for this one. It is what it is. Tomorrow, I'll have another video not about the Raptors. It'll be about the Bojan Bogdanovic trade. Actually, I do link it to the Raptors, so we'll see. But that'll be out tomorrow. We'll be back to normal NBA content. But I did want to give my opinion on this one. Bad situation for the league. Already dealing with Robert Sarver. bad situation for the Celtics looking to win a championship this season. But some things like this are bigger than basketball, as they should be.